This is a true crime story. True and just a little crazy. It's been featured in the New York Times, CNBC's American Greed, ABC, NBC, CBS, and now a book that you can get for free signed out on the table. It was an $80 billion gamble. The $80 billion, how a lottery ticket, hot dog, and Bigfoot helped solve the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. Let's start with the ticket. That's the actual ticket on the screen. The actual ticket that was purchased at a convenience store. A rather large gentleman walked in, picked up a ticket for a hot lotto game. That hot lotto game was valued at $16.5 million, a jackpot. Hey, and why shouldn't he? His name was Eddie Tipton. He was the computer programmer, the security guy at the multi-state lottery. He wrote the code to pick the numbers on the computer. He also was the security information director for the most powerful game in the world, Powerball. But that was his unlucky day. You see, he'd already picked up 4 or 5 jackpots over the last 10 years. He thought it was a simple one. He dressed in a hoodie and walked in to disguise himself a little bit. But he was unlucky for a couple of reasons. Number one, in Iowa, you can't claim a lottery ticket anonymously. Nor can you play or claim a ticket if you are part of a vendor and have the inside scoop on what happens with the lottery. He also was unlucky because in that store, they recorded both audio and video. Now, most stores have video, of course, as you walk into any convenience store. But only 4 stores in the state of Iowa out of 2,400 had audio, and he was unlucky enough to walk in. Well, he took that ticket out the door. No big story here yet, folks. And he headed for Texas, his hometown. And when he got to Texas, he gave the ticket to a friend, said, hey, I think you may want to play this ticket. It looks like it might be a winner at some point. And it went around from Houston, Texas, to the guy saying, hey, I just won $16.5 million, gave it to his lawyer, who called another lawyer in New York, said, you cash this, I'll give you $500,000, and then ultimately made its way to Canada. That took about 10 months. Well, during that time, of course, we're saying, hey, we've got a winner. Check your billfolds, check above your visor, you may have the winner. But no one came in for the first few months. We kept barking, we want to give this money away. Then we had people come in and say, hey, I think I won. I think the clerk stole the ticket from me. We even had someone call and say, hey, I think this is organized crime. Well, am I going to get a horse head in my bed? My husband, I think, is an organized crime. He's a truck driver. I haven't seen him for 2 months. So if they come in and claim this ticket, be sure to check the background for organized crime. But about 11 months after the ticket was bought, we get a call from a lawyer in Canada. He said, my name's Philip Johnston. I'm a retired lawyer. I have the ticket. And he gave us the numbers. This was the ticket. He gave us numbers on here, the very secure little ticket here with a lot of things we can check. We knew he had the ticket. So we asked some basic questions. We have to know who bought the ticket. We said, okay, what were you wearing when you walked in the store? He wasn't thinking. He said, I was wearing a tweed suit. I'm 78 years old. But I bought the ticket. I want to send it in. Just send me the money. Ding, ding, ding. No, sir. We saw the video, and it was somebody in a hooded sweatshirt. Well, it's my ticket. We're coming in. We'll be in soon. So we called the DCI and the Attorney General's office. We have a felony fraud here. We're going to arrest these folks when they come in. Well, they didn't show up. He called back and admitted he told a fib. And he sent the ticket back to the lawyer in New York who tried to come in and claim it. We said, no way, Jose, unless you can tell us who bought the ticket. He says, you know what? My client's too wealthy. He doesn't want the publicity. We're not going to tell you. We're just going to withdraw the claim. Who has enough money to withdraw a claim for $16.5 million? Ding, 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 the investigation begins. It took almost a year. We knew the gentleman in New York and the gentleman in Canada, they were associated because the trust that they tried to claim, Hexam Investment Trust, the president of the trust was Philip Johnston in Canada, and the guy that was the trustee was the guy in New York. So we talked to him. DCI went out and finally interviewed him a year later, and they ask a lot of questions, but it boils down to this question, which I love, I'm going to keep all my life. Sir, would you like to be the witness or the defendant? Guess what? Both decided to be the witness. And they both pointed to a gentleman named Robert Rhodes in Houston, Texas. Robert Rhodes and his lawyer were the one that sent it. But we couldn't figure out why Robert Rhodes didn't come forward. He didn't look like the person on the video, because you can get a picture if you just Google him on Facebook. So they tried to go down and talk to him. He always avoided them, never came in. So we really didn't have any answers. And we were running into, it took 4 years from the time the ticket was purchased. There's the statute of limitations. You could actually charge someone. Didn't seem like a big case. It was Iowa. And when we talk about $80 billion, and why do we call this the $80 billion gamble, it's because all of my colleagues are saying, don't you dare get out of the press with this. Just pay it, because some states will pay anonymous winners. Just pay it, because we don't want this in ours, because $80 billion, you're gambling with our money if this thing turns south and players don't trust the lottery anymore. Well, we continue to say we want to do the right thing. So we decided we've got 3 months left in the statute of limitations. Let's release the video and audio. We put it out on the website, had a big press conference, and lo and behold, people started calling, hey, that's Eddie Tipton. Eddie Tipton? He's the guy that programs the computer for the multi-state lottery, and his friend wins. How are they connected? Well, someone within my office, and here's a lesson. Take this home. If anything you learned today, take this one home. Tell your kids, tell your friends, if you do anything illegal, don't use Facebook, don't use LinkedIn, don't use your cell phone. Because the first place the cops go to are social media, and they could find all your contacts. They had it wide open. They didn't have it screwed down to just the friends at all. They had it wide open. They knew all the friends, and they realized that these two guys worked together 6 years before Eddie Tipton came to work for the Multi-State Lottery as the CEO and COO of Systems Evolutions, Inc. in Houston. So ding, 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 we had them together. We went ahead and charged them. We went to the first trial. Let me see if I can, here we go. That's Eddie and his lawyer. And of course, the jury said, hey, look, Eddie programmed the computer. His friend won. Yeah, they're guilty of a felony. But it was still just a small Iowa case, and he was going to be found guilty of the small and no big deal. Yet, a lot of publicity, a lot of international publicity, actually, about this ticket. But then we get to go to the hot dogs. Now, if you remember, Eddie Tipton walked in and bought a lottery ticket and 2 hot dogs. They needed a character witness during the trial to help Eddie so he didn't get sentenced to too many years. So Eddie says, bring up my brother. He's a justice of the peace in Flatonio, Texas. He's a part-time peace officer. And so Tommy Tipton, his brother, gets on the stand, tells the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Tommy looks at the video and he says, that ain't my brother. He don't eat hot dogs. He ain't no hot dog guy. And everybody goes whoosh to look at Eddie Tipton, 400 pounds strong, and thought, that's kind of ironic. Well, the Associated Press thought so too. They took the story, put it on the national wires, and it made it all the way back to Flatonio, Texas. Tommy Tipton, the guy that was on the stand talking about the hot dogs, hometown. And a federal agent saw it and said, wait a minute. That's the guy I investigated 10 years ago. He was in a tree stand hunting, fell out of the tree stand, and we were looking at him for money laundering. We caught him in the hospital under a morphine drip, and he said, oh, no, I won that in a Colorado lottery. He said, I better call the Iowa authorities. He called up and said, you ought to check Tommy. Well, what do you suppose they did? They checked Facebook, they checked LinkedIn with Tommy, and they checked all of his cell phone records. In fact, we could go back on Eddie Tipton almost 4 years and see exactly where he is standing. Think about that. So we pulled together all the lottery winners across America. Now we've got, instead of an Iowa case, we pulled all the lottery winners, $10,000 or more, and ding, 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 within a week we had 4 big jackpots that were completely tied to these, that were in their cell phones or on their social media contacts. So then, the 2 hot dogs now, we have a ticket, we have 2 hot dogs. How does Bigfoot enter in? Well, let's go way back 10 years ago. Tommy Tipton was a Bigfoot hunter. The big hairy guy was elusive, of course. And so Tommy, when Eddie would give him tickets, would recruit his Bigfoot friends to go cash the tickets in. And then they'd get to keep 10%. But the Bigfoot hunter that went to Colorado brought back $100 bills in sequential order, so Tommy thought, I need to redistribute these so it doesn't look too obvious, and went to a fireworks dealer who thought, this looks like money laundering, and contacted the federal agents. So if they hadn't been hunting Bigfoot, Tommy hadn't mentioned the 2 hot dogs on the stand, and of course, if Eddie hadn't purchased the ticket in Iowa, we would have never solved the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. Ultimately, we got them all. And guess what they asked? Now that we had the information, now that we had the smoking guns, and during the presentation we tell you all of the things that happened and what actually happened and what the code was all about. They said, who wants to be the witness and who wants to be the defendant? Robert Rhodes flipped immediately, told us that everything that we thought was true was. We went to Tommy and Eddie, and we got something called closure. If you ever go through a major crime, whether it's a murder, whether it's any kind of assault, it's often appealed. And with all of my colleagues saying, hey, you may be messing here. You're gambling with the $80 billion that we get in the lottery industry a year. We got full closure because they all three confessed and all three sentenced. Eddie spending up to 25 years in prison as we speak today. Good leadership happens in good time. That's pretty easy. You've got clients right now who are doing well. I tell the story and talk a lot about what you should watch for within your own organizations, because internal crime is much more prevalent than all of the hacking that we hear about on the outside for external crime in what we have. Great and successful leadership is always judged by what happens in adverse times. It was an $80 billion gamble. Did we win? Absolutely. Lotteries had the best year ever last year because people are saying if they're watching, we can play because the game's going to be fair and honest. So that's the $80 billion gamble.
Terry Rich was fabulous. We had him come and talk to our Bankers Trust officers here at Goodwill, and he was not only entertaining, but he had a great message which supports what we're trying to do as an organization and being ethical leadership not only within our walls, but within the community.
Terry's speech was incredible, inspiring, and a great touch to the EO topic.
We just had Terry Rich speak at our event. This is the second event I've actually had him at for 2 different clients of mine, and it gets better and better, and I can see the whole crowd engaged and discussion continues on. We're so thankful he came and spoke, and we can't wait to have him again.
Just attended the $80 million gamble lottery fraud case with Terry Rich. Really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed the speech tonight. I learned a lot about how financial fraud can happen.
Terry Rich was a great speaker, and you'll have a great night.
And I enjoyed working with Terry Rich at our North American Gaming Regulators Association conference this year. We're hearing great reviews, and his presentation was very well received, and he was a pleasure to work with.